Hey guys, Sean here. Welcome to the F1 Word and to the preview for the 2022 United States Grand Prix. Probably unsurprisingly, I'm very much looking forward to this one for several reasons. I mean, first of all, the obvious is that I honestly get properly hyped for most, if not all, the races. But for this one, I am a massive fan of the Circuit of the Americas. I just love the flow of the track, not that I'll be driving it. And to be fair, we've seen some great races here over the last decade. And you know, with the driver's title now all wrapped up, maybe we'll see a few drivers throwing a bit more caution to the wind. Emphasis on the word maybe. After all, there is still a Constructors Championship to seal. More on that a little bit later though. But enough of all that waffle, lots to get through, so let's kick things off as we always do with a look at the track stats and all the info that follows. So last time out, F1 was back in Japan for a wet weekend, which eventually saw Max Verstappen crowned world champion. But now it's on to Austin for round 19 of the season. Yes, there really are just 4 races left in 2022. Maybe it's just me, but it doesn't feel 5 minutes since the season started. But anyway, a lap of the Circuit of the Americas is 5.513 kilometers long. That is just over 3.42 miles if you prefer, and is made up of a total of 20 corners. And come Sunday, we should be set, all being well, to see 56 racing laps. There will be 2 DRS zones this weekend to help drivers get some moves done. The first zone runs from just after turn 11 down that long straight on the run to turn 12, with the second zone, as you'd expect, down the start-finish straight. The race lap record is held by Charles Leclerc, who posted a 1:36.169 back in 2019. And last year's fastest lap was a 1:38.485, and that was set by Lewis Hamilton on his way to finishing P2 behind Max Verstappen and ahead of the second Red Bull of Sergio Perez. And that was, by the way, the second of 3 occasions those 3 drivers shared the podium in 2021. Not quite at the level of the old Ham-Bot-Ver we've seen over the years. I mean, for comparison, in 2020 alone, the 3 of them were on the podium together 8 times. So, yeah, I think you can see where I'm going with this one. And if you take those 8 times and knock off the 3 times we saw a combination of Verstappen, Hamilton and Perez last season, we are left with the number 5, which, as well as being Sebastian Vettel's race number, it is also the number of dry tyre compounds available in the Pirelli range. Yes, it is tyre talk time, and yes, they are getting worse and more desperate, but you know, I've done 18 of these already this year and I am completely running out of ideas. The compounds available for this one are right down the middle of the Pirelli range, and so they are the hard C2, the medium C3 and the soft C4. There are a couple of interesting lines in the Pirelli press release that I just want to highlight. So firstly, the uneven nature of the track surface around COTA could make it necessary for teams to run higher ride heights, which will of course influence aerodynamic performance. And that's despite the resurfacing and milling that was carried out in 2020 and 2021 respectively to try and deal with the bumps. And secondly, Mario Isola explains that we can expect to see a high degree of track evolution on Friday. And so with the manufacturer taking over FP2 to do some tyre testing, teams are going to have to maximise data collection during the final practice session on Saturday to try and get a better understanding of where they want to go with strategy. Last year's winning strategy was a 2-stopper with race winner Max Verstappen starting on the mediums before moving on to 2 sets of the hards. And it's not usually a 1-stop race, to be fair, due to the high tyre degradation, the relatively short pit lane delta, and the fact that overtaking is easier than at some other tracks. And actually, Aston Martin says outside of the first lap and any race restarts, we see an average of 40 overtakes a race at COTA, 72% of those coming thanks to DRS. The safety car could play its part in the race and potentially mix up strategy. That said, only 3 races at the track since its debut in 2012 have featured at least 1 full safety car period, although 4 have had at least 1 virtual safety car period. When it comes to the weather though, rain is not expected at all this weekend, at least that's how things stand at time of recording. Friday will be dry with highs of 27 degrees for FP1 and 28 degrees for FP2. Saturday is also expected to stay dry, but it will be ever so slightly warmer with temperatures forecast to hit 30 degrees for qualifying. And on Sunday, there could be a bit more cloud cover, but no rain is expected with highs of 31 degrees in time for lights out. As always, though, that is the forecast at time of recording and so could easily change. However, the thing to really take away from this is that we should be set to see a warm and dry weekend, so hopefully there won't be any weather-related delays to the start of the race. And your schedule for the weekend is a late one here in Europe, and that's not a moan, by the way. In many ways, I'd much rather have early and or late races. But anyway, back to the point. FP1 will kick the weekend off on Friday as usual from 8 p.m. BST. FP2 gets started at 11 p.m. and that will, by the way, be 90 minutes long so Pirelli can do some tyre testing. Saturday's F1 action starts at 8 p.m. with FP3 with qualifying underway later that night at 11 p.m. And it is lights out for the race on Sunday at 8 p.m. and once again that is in UK time. Now, before I move on, there are a couple of things I want to mention, starting by going over a lot of FP1 driver changes, and that could well be a theme between now and the end of the year as several teams still need to satisfy the rookie practice rule that came into force this season. So, Logan Sargent will be driving for Williams on Friday in place of Nicholas Latifi. Alfa Romeo will be running Teo Pourchaire and he will be in Valtteri Bottas's seat. Robert Schwartzman will be in the Ferrari, although as I sit here and record this, I don't know who he will replace. Alex Palou will take Daniel Ricciardo's seat at McLaren during practice 1. And although it doesn't satisfy the young rookie driver test rule, Antonio Giovinazzi will be out on track in the Haas. The team, by the way, confirming that Pietro Fittipaldi will be running for them in FP1 in both Mexico and Abu Dhabi. And super quickly, Red Bull can wrap up the Constructors title this weekend in Austin, although just like the Drivers' Championship, it's been a foregone conclusion for a while now. The simple way to look at it is that Red Bull needs to leave Austin with a 147-point lead over Ferrari, but if Ferrari want to keep their almost non-existent title chances alive, they must outscore Red Bull by 19 points on Sunday. That means, realistically, Charles Leclerc and Carlos Sainz could really do with a 1-2 finish on Sunday and grab that fastest lap. However, to really hammer home how unlikely a title turnaround is, that result still wouldn't be enough if Max Verstappen and Sergio Perez finished 3rd and 4th. Long story short, I'm fully expecting to see Red Bull take the Constructors title this weekend for the first time since 2013. Okay, then it's time to flash back to a classic US Grand Prix, and really there could only be one choice this time around. This weekend will be Sebastian Vettel's final race in the USA as he heads for retirement at the end of the year. So let's flash back to his first ever F1 appearance, and that of course was the 2007 United States Grand Prix at Indianapolis. At the previous round in Canada, Robert Kubica suffered a huge crash on the run to the hairpin and was ruled out of the race at Indy after doctors ordered him to rest, despite Kubica saying he felt he was fine to race. Enter a young Sebastian Vettel who took his seat for the weekend at BMW Sauber. He got off to a flyer, finishing P4 in the first practice session and went on to qualify 7th place for the race. It was a slow start to the Grand Prix though for Seb, and he was under attack into the first corner and ended up braking very late, locking up and decided to cut across the grass to avoid any kind of contact with other drivers. And that incident dropped him down to P11. He fought his way back through the field though over the course of the race, eventually ended up 9th and behind Mark Webber, his future Red Bull teammate. And with a late retirement for Nico Rosberg, Vettel was promoted to 8th place where he would remain and become at the time the youngest ever F1 point scorer. It wasn't just about Vettel though, as that weekend will also be forever remembered for the battle at the front between the McLaren teammates and title rivals Fernando Alonso and Lewis Hamilton. The two drivers side by side down the straight at one stage, with neither driver understandably willing to yield. Despite the Spaniards' challenge on track though, and apparently some lobbying over team radio, the Brit converted pole position into victory with Alonso just 1.5 seconds behind, and Felipe Massa brought his Ferrari home in 3rd place but was 12.8 seconds behind race winner Hamilton. I think it's fair to say it was a pretty dominant display by McLaren, and yeah, an impressive debut from a young Sebastian Vettel. Right then, before I go and before I lose my voice, time for some predictions. And as always, please don't take these too seriously. They are just a little bit of fun. But if you do disagree with my picks, then you can let me know yours in the comment section down below. Now, usually at this point, I'd be telling you how badly I did last time out. However, lovely to say this, I was right on all but one thing, and that was Zhou Guanyu taking fastest lap. And I don't think anybody could have seriously expected that to happen. So please don't be too hard on me for that one. After all, it was by far my best result of the season. This week, look, I know it's getting boring now, but really, how can I not back Red Bull and Max Verstappen as the favourites? They are dominating this year, and it feels like most tracks now play to their strengths. It would just be disingenuous of me to sit here and say something like, I expect a Mercedes win, or whatever. Although, let me know if you prefer me to make some crazy bold predictions for the final 3 races rather than being, realistic. Anyway, I will try and mix it up a little bit rather than picking Verstappen for everything. I do expect Ferrari to once again be the closest challengers to Red Bull, and although the race pace hasn't always been there, qualifying pace has generally been very strong this season. So I'll go with Charles Leclerc for the fastest lap on Saturday, but there are some reports claiming he will take an engine penalty. Nothing official as I sit here and record this, that's just a rumour. So 1, keep an eye out for that one, but 2, that means he won't have official pole for the race, so that will likely go to the driver in P2 unless there are any other penalties, and that's why I'll have to put Verstappen as pole position, and yes, I will also go with a Verstappen win on Sunday. For the podium, I'm actually going to go with Carlos Sainz for 2nd and Lewis Hamilton for P3. Although it must be said, the lack of straight line speed that Mercedes has had at times this season may well hurt them when it comes to overtaking. I suppose maybe therefore Perez would be a safer bet with Leclerc potentially out of position, but I'm going to stick with Hamilton to try and keep it somewhat interesting. Behind the top 3 teams, I really want to get behind McLaren this weekend, but Alpine still look to have the edge in that battle. The only things that could hamper them are reliability, some odd strategy call, or even McLaren getting lucky with the timing of a safety car like we saw in Singapore. And I'm going to work on the assumption that at least one or all of those things happen, and so I'm going to pick McLaren for best of the rest with, let's say, Lando Norris making the top 6 on Sunday. As for some bolder predictions, I've got to go with Sebastian Vettel for points, surely, although given Aston's form over the last 2 races, that's maybe not all that bold anymore. I'm going to go with Mick Schumacher for a top 10 finish, as well at Haas's home Grand Prix. He could do with some points actually this weekend. And let's say Alex Albon somehow manages to make Q3 in that Williams, maybe takes advantage of that long straight with that slippery car. That is it for the United States Grand Prix preview though, but you can let me know your thoughts and your predictions ahead of the weekend in the comment section down below. Now, I will be back live shortly after the race on Sunday for the usual reaction stream. But in the meantime, if you did enjoy this one, then please do leave a like, as it really does help give the channel a little bit of a boost. And don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss out on any future content. But as ever, thank you for watching. I've been Sean, this has been the F1 Word, and until next time, goodbye.